Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. Senator Chris Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador to meet with the country's vice president. He's pushing to free Gilmar Abrego Garcia, who was mistakenly deported to a prison there.
You would think that the U.S. courts have found that Mr. Abrego Garcia is part of MS-13, but in fact, they have not found that.
Van Hollen says the president told him El Salvador could not return Abrego Garcia to the U.S.
If Abrego Garcia has not committed a crime, and the U.S. courts have found that he was illegally taken from the United States, and the government of El Salvador has no evidence that he was part of MS-13, why is El Salvador continuing to hold him?
He was not allowed to visit him in prison. At an unrelated news conference Wednesday, Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked about the case.
President Bukele said he was not sending him back. That's the end of the story. If he wanted to send him back, we would give him a plane ride back. There was no situation ever where he was going to stay in this country.
AP correspondent Julie Walker reports California will sue to stop Trump from imposing his sweeping tariffs.
California is filing a lawsuit to challenge President Trump's tariffs. Governor Gavin Newsom says the president lacks the authority to impose a 10% tariff on all imports and that enacting such tariffs requires approval from Congress. The Democratic governor also says the tariffs are driving up prices and threatening jobs in California. The lawsuit will ask for the tariffs to be blocked. Trump says the tariffs are designed in part to spur U.S. manufacturing and balance trade deficits with other countries. Newsom's announcement comes days after he asked countries to exempt California exports from retaliatory tariffs.
This is AP News. AP correspondent Mike Hempen reports the nation's health secretary says autism has been increasing in children at an alarming rate.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is promising to conduct extensive studies to identify environmental factors that may cause autism. A Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report says an estimated 1 in 31 U.S. children has autism. That's up considerably from 2020.
Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children.
Kennedy says autism is a preventable disease.
We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics.
However, researchers and scientists have identified genetic factors that are associated with autism. It's not considered a disease, but a complex disorder that affects the brain.
I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Caro. For today, we'll have partly to mostly cloudy skies with scattered showers and storms developing, high temperatures reaching up into the mid-60s. Then for tonight, a chance for showers and storms in the evening, a low of 56. For Friday, warming up to a high of 83 degrees, still can't rule out a slight chance for a shower or storm. For Saturday, chance for some early day showers, we're back in the mid-50s. And that's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, 45.
1 in 4 Americans have a disability. I'm one of them. I'm also a working mom who cares deeply about making sure every child with a disability thrives by getting their access needs met. We've got a trusted ally by our side. Easter Seals provides children and families the foundation for lifelong success through early learning programs, skills training, and prep for college and career. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours. Join us at easterseals.com.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Thursday morning, progressives. And yes, welcome to the April 17th, 2025 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278 is the number. We'll be taking your calls today, as many as we can, certainly in the second half hour. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. Email me at richard@WCPT820.com. Catch me on Substack. Just dropped a few posts yesterday that you guys should check out. And also catch all of our shows by subscribing, yes, to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify. There you can get Choose Views, short version and long version. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, driving it home with Patty Vasquez. The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. And as we always say, check out our heartlandsignal.com digital platform. Lots of good stuff there. So, today's show, I'll go back real quickly to Joan. She'll be joined today by Colin Booth, political correspondent at the New Hampshire-based Granite Post. I love that. Gromer Jeffers Jr., political writer at the Dallas Morning News. Dave Wallach, executive director of Americans for Responsible Growth. And Mark Jacob, author and publisher of the Stop the Presses newsletter, live, local, and progressive. None other than Joan Esposito, 2 to 5 p.m. here on WCPT, Chicago's progressive talk for 20 years. And then tonight, driving it home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by co-host Terry Cosgrove, and their guests are Daniel Hornig, former deputy director of the National Economic Council under President Biden, author and attorney Meg Groff, and Jay Berglund, CEO of Aegis Foods, can't get that right, and The Good Egg. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. here on WCPT, AM 820, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. There you go, letting you know what's happening. Tomorrow we're going to have my guest will be Ryan Mulholland, and senior fellow, who is a senior fellow for the International Economic Council at the Center for American Progress. And, of course, back to back, we've got Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast and Kurt Mullett, who will be with me. And we've got a special guest, Franklin Jackson, who's running for and against Victoria Spartz in Indiana. That's a very important congressional seat, and I'm looking forward to talking to Franklin tomorrow on the show. And speaking of today's show, what we got happening here, we'll definitely keep you plugged in, because our guests today include Mike Holler from the Citizens Climate Lobby here in Chicago. And Mike's going to be talking a little bit about some of the bipartisan conversations around making sure our climate is kept in check and things that we can be doing individually in that space. And then none other than U.S. Congresswoman Robin Kelly is going to be with us. It's been a while since we talked with her, so I'm very excited to have her on the show this morning. And let me turn off my phone, guys. Sorry about that. Normally, I get that done when I first walk in the door, but this is one of those mornings where I got out of my little routine. But anyhow, Congresswoman Robin Kelly will be with us this morning in the 7:30 hour, and I am tremendously excited to have her on. I know she's got a lot to say. We could probably talk a couple of hours, given the fact that she's one of those congresswomen that's getting it done. But I also want to know what's happening, how she's holding up with this craziness that she's dealing with in Washington. Some information she'll be sharing with us about work that she's doing with Senator Dick Durbin. Today's topics will include, we're going to chat a little bit about Judge Boasberg and what he finds as probable cause. We've got a clip from Senator Tammy Baldwin on tariffs. We've got a couple of other things we'll be talking about with Trump and independent voters and what's happening in that space. and of, kind of the big conversation, or certainly one of the bigger conversations of the day, is Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat from Maryland, who made the trek down to El Salvador to the CCOT prison where the gentleman is being held there in that El Salvador prison. So we'll be covering those topics today, and we'll be talking about maybe a shift that's happening with regard to how independents are looking at Trump. So we've got a little bit of data, and we'll bring that to you in this first hour of the show. So I want to throw a question out to you guys before I hit you with Choose Views News, and here's the question. The question is, if you were in that White House press room and you had a chance to ask Caroline Leavitt a question or two, but what would you ask her? How would you handle being in that press room, and what question would you ask Caroline Leavitt? Certainly want to hear from you. We'll be taking your calls certainly in this first hour of the show and trying to get those in as best possible. But give us a call, because I'd like to hear what you guys would say, ask her, maybe even say to her, maybe get thrown out. Henry, I'd get thrown out. You'd be outside going, see, Richard, I told you if you ask that question, they're going to throw your behind out. But I'm glad you asked the question, because Henry would be looking at me if I walked out like, why didn't you ask the question, dude? We talked about it all the way over here in the ride in the Uber. You're going to ask this question. So I want to hear what you guys would ask Caroline Leavitt, who's the White House press secretary. I've got other names for her, but I try to be respectful. I don't try. I am respectful. I just, there's some things that I would say. And I'll tell you what my question is. If enough of you, I'll tell you either way, but hopefully you guys have some thoughts about what you would say to her or ask her if you were sitting in one of those White House press meetings. So give us a call, or you can send us a text at 773-763-9278 to let us know how would you handle Miss Caroline Leavitt. All right, Henry, let's check in with Choose Views News here on April 17th, 2025. Retail sales are apparently surging ahead of tariffs. They've jumped more in the past 2 years, meaning in March, than they've seen, of course, in the past 2 years, as Americans stockpile goods ahead of the imposition of sweeping U.S. tariffs. Advanced estimates of retail and food services jumped 1.4% from February and 4.6% from a year earlier. The U.S. Commerce Department did report that yesterday, the rise coming despite weakening consumer sentiment. That led a rush to purchase things like cars before the 25% levies are locked in on imported vehicles takes place in May. California is suing to block the Trump tariffs, and I'm glad that it's happening, and more organizations and groups, particularly universities, as a sidebar, where this is happening. But California is suing to block the Trump administration's wide-ranging tariffs, becoming the first state to do so, Governor Gavin Newsom announced yesterday. The complaint filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California argues that President Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to levy tariffs is unlawful. The Golden State, with the world's fifth largest economy, could lose billions of dollars from tariffs, according to Politico, given the reliance on global trade. Good for Gavin Newsom. I'm still in his corner. I just didn't like what he did. You heard me say that, so I'll leave that alone. But good for Gavin Newsom in that space. NVIDIA, AMD warn on China charges. What does that mean? Advanced Micro Devices will face a charge of as much as $800 million thanks to the Trump administration's new restrictions on semiconductor exports to China. The company revealed in a filing, rival NVIDIA expects to shoulder a charge of $5.5 billion this quarter for the same reason. Shares of both firms fell on this news. NVIDIA alone could lose out on somewhere between $14 and $18 billion in revenue this year due to the restrictions, according to Bloomberg. So imagine how that's going to impact not only people that work for the company, but those who hold stock in that company, those companies. And that's important. I know a lot of people say, well, I don't have a stock portfolio, but many people do. So you can't discount it just because you're not part of it, but be aware of how it will impact the local economies of where those companies are. That's the other part. We always have to be mindful of something other than just ourselves. Anyhow, Jamie Dimon urges China trade talks. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon said Donald Trump's trade war risks, quote, eroding the U.S.'s credibility, if that hasn't already happened, and implored the White House to initiate talks with China, according to an interview with the Financial Times. Dimon described the uncertainty over tariffs as, quote, challenging, adding that he wants the U.S. to begin negotiating with allies. His comments come as the World Trade Organization warns that the outlook for global trade has deteriorated sharply. Hong Kong is suspending U.S. mail service, and they announced this yesterday that its postal service would stop sending packages to the United States as the trade war shakes up global shipping. It comes after Donald Trump recently ordered the closure of a loophole allowing retailers to send items worth under $800 from China and Hong Kong to the United States without tariffs. The move means businesses and individuals in Hong Kong will have to pay for private couriers such as FedEx and DHL to deliver packages, pushing prices higher. All right, and last but not least, United, the airline, has a tale of two outlooks. What does that mean? Economic uncertainty is causing turbulence for United Airlines. In a rare move on Wednesday, the carrier offered two earnings scenarios for 2025. If economic conditions are stable, earnings per share are expected to reach $11.50 to $13.50. But if the U.S. falls into a recession, earnings could slump to $7 per share. United's dual outlook comes as the industry grapples with weakening demand for travel. Both Delta and Frontier Airlines withdrew their full-year outlooks late last week. Trump is a disaster. He is a chaos agent, and he's causing everything that I just read. Period. It's not being caused by the Democrats. It's not a fix to anything that Joe Biden did or did not do, or that Kamala Harris did or did not do. It is Donald Trump, period, end. And like I said at the end of the show yesterday, when I talked about the carnage of what's happening with immigration and deportations, as well as the economy and tariffs, this is flatly in the laps, like a big old plate of food, a platter of food in the laps of MAGA and the GOP. There is no question about it, because they voted for this, and now this is what we're all dealing with. But let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. When we come back, we'll talk about a few other items, as I mentioned before, some of our topics today. But give us a call. We want to hear what you have to say, or what you would say, what question you would ask if you were in that White House press room with an opportunity to ask Caroline Levitt a question. We'll be right back.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you.
800-365-6303. 800-365-6303. 800-365-6303. That's 800-365-6303.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
It's
Chew's View with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey, progressives, welcome back. 773-763-9278. Well, let's get right after it. The question, what would you ask Caroline Leavitt if you were sitting in the White House press meeting and had a chance to ask her a question? I want to hear what you guys have to say about that and what you might say to her. I've got my comments. I don't know if I want to save them or if I want to drop them right now. Maybe I'll drop them right now. That might kick off the party. I would ask her what, very, very sternly, I would ask her what makes her qualified for this job. Why do you think you're qualified for this job? And prove it to us. Or I may rephrase the question and say, prove to the United States, the American people that you like to so often use, that you're qualified for this job, and tell us why. And if she were to try to rebuff that and say, well, the president chose me and I'm and goes down her normal little, see, I can't be, she can't try to intimidate and use her hard language with me. I'm from Chicago. I would dare her to, because I watched some of the stuff that she said the last week and how she's gotten caught with backtracking, and particularly with the deportation issues right now. So she could try to come at me all she wants to, but that wouldn't end up too well for her. And of course, once I got it escorted out, Henry would be like high-fiving me because I asked the question. But I want to ask her, I want to know, what makes you think you're qualified for this job? And tell the American people why. And you don't get to defer to, well, the president picked me because no, you are. You're kind of a legacy Nepo hire. Because I can think of a whole bunch of journalists that are on various outlets that would do a much better job than her that happen to be Republican. So I'm not being partisan in that. I'm just saying she's not qualified for this job. She's qualified to stand up there, and I'm going to use the B word, but I'm not going to use the B word, but the B word, and yell and try to intimidate and talk down to people. But I'm old enough to be her daddy, so I would. Oh, but she's married to a guy that is too. Oh, wow. Oh, I can't believe I said that, Henry. Dirty me. Hey, listen, you love who you love and all that stuff, but she's married to a dude that's old enough to be her daddy. So she wouldn't talk to me that way, trust me. I want to hear what you guys have to say. And what would you say to her? What question would you ask her? And I'm serious. I'm curious because, like I said, I've watched her backtrack and stumble over herself recently. And all her go-to when she gets caught is to get kind of vile, kind of nasty. When she gets caught, when she gets asked a question, then she gets nasty rather than being respectful to the folks that are in that room. So let me know what you guys have to say in that space. I'm curious. All right, so let's talk about a couple of the topics of the day that I want to bring down to you guys. As you guys may have seen or heard, Judge Boasberg finds probable cause to hold the Trump officials in criminal contempt over the deportation flights. And this goes back to, in case you guys don't remember, because so much has been thrown at all of us, this goes back to when he put out an order that said, I want to know, he described what he wanted, and they defied that. So the wording is complicated, so I don't want to go down through all of that. But essentially, he said, this is what I want. They defied that, and they went ahead and they fired up the jets, and they flew the plane down to El Salvador. And I'm minimizing this for a reason, because I don't want to get into the weeds on this, because the most important part is that he finds probable cause to hold Trump officials in criminal contempt over deportation flights. And this is how part of it reads. A federal judge on Wednesday found probable cause to hold the Trump administration officials in criminal contempt for what he said was, quote, willful disregard of his order to stop transferring deportees to El Salvador for imprisonment in a notorious maximum security prison. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg found that the government last month rushed to fly 2 planes carrying hundreds of passengers to the Salvadoran prison in the hours after the judge barred the government from doing so. The government's actions on that day demonstrate a willful disregard for its order, Boasberg wrote in a 46-page decision. That's important because a lot of people have been asking, will the courts hold up? Will the courts be able to create the necessary or uphold the necessary guardrails that that part of the three branches of government are supposed to do? The judiciary and its ability to use its power. Now, some people are saying, Henry, the Trump administration is not going to care. They're still going to step over the line. I don't think you don't do. I'm really botching the order of how I want to say this, but stay with me. I don't think you don't do something or you choose not to do something because of the fear of what might happen if you do the right thing. If y'all are with me, I say that again. I think you do the thing that you're supposed to do or that you're empowered to do. Be damn the fear of what somebody might say. I've talked about this before. Democrats shouldn't put forward legislation or put forward requests for hearings just because they might get banked down or batted down, I should say, by Republicans because they don't have the numbers. You still bring forward the legislation. You still bring forward the request for hearing and let them, you might be surprised. We're 4 votes away. As Representative Lauren Underwood said, we have to continue to push the envelope and go after those representatives who are in purple districts. And let's be honest, Henry, based on some of these town halls, there's more and more folks that are speaking out in red districts about their dissatisfaction. And many of them probably, and this is what some of the data is showing, are independents. We'll try to get to that in a little bit. But I want to come back to this. Democrats don't not, or judges don't not push forward where there is an opportunity to hold this administration in criminal contempt. Criminal contempt. That's a heavy-duty filing. And so for those of us who believe in this next statement, send some good vibe to U.S. District Judge James Boasberg, because he's doing his job. And in this time when it's probably tough for a lot of judges to do their job and to follow the letter of the law, we've got to get behind those folks to push them and let them know we've got their backs as well. And I mean that. What I mean by that is, who of us knows Judge James Boasberg? But most of us don't. But what we do know is he's one of those people that is saying, nah, I made it clear that you were not to go forward. And with willful disregard, those are heavy words when it comes from a judge. Willful, that means you made a decision. It was your will to do that action, to commit that action, or to disregard that which I put forward. I'm happy to see that he's taking the baton in that space. And that's just one. And after we come back from the break, we're going to hit you with a few clips that speak to what others are doing. And I think it's incumbent on elected officials that are Democratic elected officials, because we can't count on the Republicans. We can hope, but we can't count on. That's different. Those 4 in the House that we can find that will vote with the Dems, that's hopeful that we can't count on that. But we can expect representatives and senators to make the decision to do what Senator Van Hollen did. And we'll speak to that when we come back. We've got a clip or two that we're going to play for you. But I also don't want to leave on the table this conversation around Trump and independence, because that's a big deal. And those may be some of the people, some of the voters that are showing up at these town halls. We'll speak to that when we come back. But let's take a break. The number, of course, is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular and get your second month free for a limited time. You'll get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month. Here's Veronica and Jackie, real customers.
I didn't know that I could get something for a lot less money that was actually better than who I was with before.
Anytime anybody complains about their cell phone bill, we say, you've got to check out Consumer Cellular.
And now for a limited time, new customers can get their second month free when they use promo code SECONDFREE. Just call, click, or bring us your bill and see how much you can save. Because when it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit a store near you, or consumercellular.com and use code SECONDFREE to get a free second month. Real people paid to share their opinions in this ad. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Caro. For today, we'll have partly to mostly cloudy skies with scattered showers and storms developing, high temperatures reaching up into the mid-60s. Then for tonight, a chance for showers and storms in the evening, a low of 56. For Friday, warming up to a high of 83 degrees, still can't rule out a slight chance for a shower or storm. For Saturday, chance for some early day showers, we're back in the mid-50s. And that's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, 45.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Choose View with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
All right, Progressives, welcome back, and thanks for being with us this morning. Some of you already sent texts about questions you would ask, so I'll try to get to those in a second. I ask of Caroline Levitt. Maybe another one I would ask her, Henry's, why are you so angry and upset? That might be one. I know some folks out there that would probably want to ask that question. What makes you think you're so fancy? And why are you so damn angry? I mean, you have a cush job. You're not qualified for it, in my opinion. It's not humble. And you know, why are you so damn angry? Do you need some therapy? I mean, you know, there's part of me, I look at her and I think, what is up with this woman? I mean, she just is. Yeah. Anyhow, you all have seen it. You know, I'm not lying. You've seen it with your own two eyes. So, and she's become very arrogant in this conversation around the deportation of Mr. Garcia. You know, and I've said a couple times, if it were a glitch or that's what they've said publicly or tried to make it sound like, well, we just, we got the paperwork mixed up. And then if that were the case, then why are you so going in the opposite direction in terms of defending what you did if it were a glitch? You see what I'm saying? That's not congruent, Henry. I tried. You guys have heard me use that word often because it always goes back to something my father said to me for years, and I love the man for this. He was like, boy, use your common sense. All that book learning is important, but when you match that up with common sense, then you're dangerous. And so it just doesn't make any sense. It's not congruent. They said it was a glitch. We got the paperwork mixed up. But if that were the case, then you go, oh, damn, we messed up. Let's correct that. But then but what's happening is they're doubling down and saying we had the right to do this. ... So then, was it a glitch, or did y'all think you had the right to do it, and you did it anyhow? There's some Lindbergh cheese that's rotting in there. That's a reference back to an old Three Stooges episode, in case you guys don't know. But anyhow. Henry, let's go to the clip that we put together of Senator Chris Van Hollen.
If you listen to President Trump and the Trump administration, you would think that the U.S. courts have found that Mr. Abrego Garcia is part of MS-13. But in fact, they have not found that. In fact, recently, a U.S. federal court judge said that the Trump administration did not have evidence to support the claim that he had ever been part of MS-13. And by the way, that was done during the last Trump administration, the last time President Trump was in office. and they never appealed that decision. So I want to emphasize that President Trump and our Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Vice President of the United States are lying when they say that Abrego Garcia has been charged with a crime or is part of MS-13. That is a lie. And this is a lie to cover up what they did. So I asked the Vice President if Abrego Garcia has not committed a crime and the U.S. courts have found that he was illegally taken from the United States, and the government of El Salvador has no evidence that he was part of MS-13, why is El Salvador continuing to hold him in CCOT? And his answer was that the Trump administration is paying El Salvador, the government of El Salvador, to keep him at CCOT. And I pointed out that neither the government of El Salvador nor the Trump administration has presented evidence to support the claim that he's committed any kind of criminal acts. And so why not release Abrego Garcia today? And he said what President Bukele said the other day at the White House, which that El Salvador can't smuggle Mr. Abrego Garcia into the United States. And I said, I'm not asking him to smuggle Mr. Abrego Garcia into the United States. I'm simply asking him to open the door of CCOT and let this innocent man walk out.
Okay, so kudos to Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat from Maryland, for doing the work. That's one of the things we elect our officials to do, is to stand up for any American citizen, but particularly if they're in your constituency. And I had sent something that I hadn't even thought about, a text, and I want to give a shout out to Cassandra in Oak Park. So let me move the mic over here a little bit, Henry, and read a part of this. She says, just a thought. Why didn't the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, bring Mr. Garcia back to the United States on his trip to America? I hadn't even thought about that. Thank you, Cassandra. Absolutely. If dude is alive and in good travel, able to travel on a plane. So it does go back to what so many people are, we are all speculating, to be candid, that he may not be alive or in a condition where he could travel, unlike the way in which when he was taken and disappeared. So Cassandra's spot on. More of us should be asking that question. It isn't about smuggling him or anything of that nature. If it's been determined that he was taken by our court system illegally and he was illegally abducted, then the president of that country, as a good measure of diplomacy, should have said, "Listen, Donald, I'm bringing him with me. Let's shut this down. We can gain more favor by me bringing him with me and, having him in the White House and doing the whole glad hand thing and blah, 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 making a spectacle out of it." But they weren't thinking of doing that, because this does go back to the situation or the concern that many people have said, that maybe he is no longer with us or he wasn't in a condition that he could travel. That's important. And so, Cassandra, thank you for having a big brain and thinking about it from this perspective. But ultimately, Senator Chris Van Hollen, I should say, respectfully, has accused the Trump administration of illegally abducting Mr. Garcia. And this is a conversation that we have to have. We can't bury our heads on this because, as I said yesterday, and when we were talking with attorney Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, she said that it is concerning to her. And so 5calls.org is the website that she recommends that folks use. But we're going to stay as connected to this as we can and talk about this as much as we can when we have more and more information and evidence that speaks to what is happening in this space. Let's grab a quick call from Mike in Los Angeles. Good morning, Mike, and welcome to Choose Views.
Hey, Richard, great show again as usual. I like your father's advice there. Sounds like my father. Hey, man, so I've been to another town hall here in L.A., Badigan, her name is, and we had it was another good crowd. It was another part of my district that I'm in, and she was spot on in telling us, we can't do anything right now as Democrats. We have to get more Democrats elected. We can do what we can, but we can't start a bill in the committee. We can't bring it to the House floor. We can't bring it to the Senate subcommittee or the Senate floor until we get a majority. So. Okay, so a lot of people don't know that. Right. What are the Democrats doing? Well, we can't do much of anything until we get a majority. So with that in mind, once again, I've been an activist for, 15 years now here in Alaska. I still stay here in Alaska, where I used to live, and listen to WCPT, and down here in Los Angeles. So, there's Progressive Democrats of America. We have a Zoom meeting on Thursdays at 6 and Sunday at 1. We do, phone banking for different candidates. There's Indivisible. When I called a couple of days ago, I guess you couldn't get me on. But, go to the Illinois Democratic Party, go to the Cook County Democratic Party, and find out what's going on. Go to your town hall meetings. Get a hold of your representative. You go to whoismyrepresentative.gov, I think it is, and you put in where your address is, and it'll tell you who your representative is if you don't know. But, I agree. Our messaging is not the problem. The 20-second media is the problem. Where I was just watching Spectrum local news, and they go, "Well, this is what the Republicans say. Well, this is what the Democrats are saying." It's all 20-second sound bites. And everything off the top of my head right now. Trump wants to be a dictator. We got to stop him.
Well, I think our power,
what he wants to do.
I think our power, one of our powers, is not just one, but one of the many that we have, is to show up, is to be at the town halls, is to push for the town halls, is to make sure that by calling our legislators and saying, listen, we need you to show up so that we know that you're still plugged in, whether it be state elected officials or those that are federally elected. That, to me, I say this all the time, Mike, because it is one of the reasons that we got here. We gave some territory on a state level, which has led to giving territory on a federal level. So it starts with us. We have to show up. We have to pull our heads out of the proverbial sand and say, this is unacceptable. Once we do that, what we're seeing, by contrast, is when folks are showing up at these Republican town halls, Republican representative town halls, they're giving them the business. And that proves, I believe, that it works. Or else they wouldn't have been told by Mike Johnson, don't hold any town halls, because they know it works. So we have that. And I know folks say, but Richard, okay, then call. If you can't make it to a town hall, then pick up the phone and call. And that's why I've been trying to find, and I'm grateful to one of the guests we had on yesterday, Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, who's an immigration attorney, that gave a website to reach out to, and we've had other folks that have given websites of places you can go to be in the mix. That's so critically important. And like you're doing, Mike, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your contribution to the show, because it allows people to know that we can do things even though we're not in charge on a federal level. We can do things. So I appreciate your contribution as always. All right, man.
I'm going to email you a fact sheet to you. I emailed you a couple things a couple months ago. It's got more information on it. I saw them. Yes, maybe you can use it.
Absolutely, I will, and I appreciate your contribution.
All right.
Thanks, Mike. Stay safe, okay?
Thank you, brother.
All right.
Thank you, brother. Great show again.
Be well. Thank you so much. Mike's great, y'all. He's out there. He's doing the work. This is. I say it all the time. We have to do the work, y'all. We don't have the luxury of saying, nah, just, I'm giving up. We cannot. We don't. No. Please, y'all, don't. I'm going to come back to something Mike said. We can bring bills too. We may not get them passed and certainly not get them signed, but that doesn't prevent the Democrats from pushing forward on legislation that they want to see happen. I think that when we give up when we give up tools that we have, we're giving in. So the making noise, and I have this as one of my points and comments every day. Rhinos versus lions. We have to be rhinos versus lions. We need to make noise every day, Dems, every single day in one way or another. And it's in my notes every single day. You can see it. I can show it to Henry. You can verify it. Make noise. We have to do that. And that's what, Mike is talking about and so many others are talking about. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we've got another couple of clips that we want to try to get in front of you guys before we get to the top of the hour. And I'm going to try to go through some of your comments on if you were in the White House press room. 773-763-9278 is the number. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Thanks to our loyal WCPT listeners, the WCPT 20th anniversary broadcast is officially sold out. But you can still enjoy the broadcast by listening to WCPT Radio on Saturday, May 3rd from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Hal Sparks will kick things off at 11 a.m., then hand it off to WCPT hosts Richard Chu, Joan Esposito, Patty Vasquez, and Scott Duff at 1 o'clock. Surprise guests from WCPT's 20-year history will also join us. Scroll through 20 years of WCPT Radio with legendary interviews, shows, and pictures on the WCPT 820 website. WCPT's live broadcast is sponsored by Max and Benny's Restaurant in Northbrook, Fazio Insurance, Smart 265, Kane County Dems, Southland Friends of Labor, Democratic Party of McHenry County, and McHenry County Democratic Women. It's the WCPT 20th anniversary live broadcast Saturday, May 3rd from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Only on WCPT 820, Chicago's only progressive talk radio station for 20 years.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk.
Hey, progressives, welcome back to Choose Views. Okay, so I'm moving the mic again because I want to try to read through the clips, the text that you guys have sent me. So I'll try to do this a little bit of rapid fire. This is coming from Tennessee. I would ask if this is going back to the question that I asked, and that is, what would you ask Caroline Leavitt if you were in that press meeting? Here's one from Tennessee. I would ask if the cross burns her neck when she lies. Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see what else we got here, guys. Bear with me as I scroll through. Let's see. All right, hold on. Let's see. I would ask if that goofball, Barbie doll, Caroline Leavitt, why do you want to ruin this country? Why are you a big liar? Why are you so mean and cruel to people? Where did you come from? Are you from another planet? Woo! That's from 872. Let's see what else we have here. All right, let's get going. Keep moving forward. Here's a question. What evidence do you have to support the claim when we can see it right in our very eyes? It's an all-purpose question. Let's see. Is the president really so weak and ineffective that he can't secure his return? Okay, those are good. That's coming from 630 here in Illinois. Let's see what else we got, Henry. I'd ask Leavitt if, given that the fact that she has no experience that qualifies her for the job, is she a pathological liar? Is that her real qualification? Is she the kind of person who can lie while connected to a lie detector and have no difference between truth, knows no difference between truth and lies? That's to our good friend JD. So yeah, some good questions, guys. And one of the consistency, a little bit of a thread there is the lies part. Every one of the questions in some capacity has something to do with her lying, and also her meanness and her arrogance. That tells you a little bit about who they have in that role. So, yeah, there you go. Let's see. Let's go to a couple quick calls. Let's go to Al in Indiana. Good morning, Al. Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, I would say before even the Caroline Leavitt news press conference, the opportunity for the press was right there in the Oval Office, or in the White House, rather, that both leaders in this constructed show that Trump had, as he's known to do, why didn't some of the press ask him, well, your opportunity to ask the leader to bring Garcia back to the U.S. is right now. Why don't you, for in front of the press, why don't you ask Garcia, the leader, to bring the U.S. Captive home.
Yeah. I mean, you're right about that, Al. But keep in mind, let's keep in mind, they really reconfigured who is in the White House press, and which is the reason I'm asking you guys what you would ask if you were there, because they reconfigured who they're letting in, because they don't want those questions. They don't want any tough questions, and when the tough question is asked, then Levitt defers to anger and bitterness and the B-wordness. But great point. And that's also what Cassandra and Oak Park said. Why didn't they just bring him with them? That would have shut this down for the most part. For the most part, not entirely, but they're just keeping it still a problem. So, Al, thanks for your call this morning. We're going to try to grab another couple of calls. Thank you for calling. Let's go to Donna in Rogers Park. Good morning, Donna. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Richard. I got a little bone to pick with you this morning.
Uh-oh.
Your choice of words calling us rhinos. Keep in mind, rhinos are Republicans in name only.
Oh, come
you might
on,
say
Donna.
Dinos.
Oh.
We're actually dinos. Democrats in name only for some of us, but none of us are rhinos. We got to change that right away.
Well,
ASAP.
all right. You know what I mean.
Drop that right away.
In terms of the ferocity of a rhinoceros. Okay, I'm with you on it.
I know what you're saying, but saying rhino, that is it right there. We got to cut that immediately.
Doggone
it. The other thing I wanted to say. I know that was a subconscious slip, but the other aspect, if I was in that room and I was asking her a question, I'd say, how would you feel if one of your relatives was so-called accidentally grabbed up and sent over there to CCOT? How would you react to it after that took place? I mean, would you be as cavalier as you are about this young man that's trapped over there?
Yep, I would do the research. Like this is how you and I would do it, Donna, and Henry would be outside waiting for us to get kicked out. But you and I would have done the research and like, okay, let's find somebody in Caroline Levitt's family, no matter what their age is. Let's get a name so that when we ask the question, we can say,
right,
Caroline. So you have a cousin. His name is Bill Smith. How would you? And Bill Smith lives in wherever in Virginia. And how would you feel if Bill Smith got accidentally caught up in some garbage like you guys are putting on Mr. Garcia, and he got glitched into CCOT? How would you feel about that? Yeah, that's the kind of question we want to ask. I'm with you, Donna.
Exactly.
That's the kind of question she needs to be asked.
I would like to see her reaction because to me, when you're talking about it's over there, they're not in my family, that's on the other side of the world. People have a whole different attitude. A lot of people, it has to get personal before people start thinking about the reality of really what is happening.
That is so well put, Donna, and doggone it, I love rhinoceroses.
I know you do, but if you're going to say it, you got to say the whole word. Don't say rhinos.
All right,
because that's what they call Republicans in name only. Or you could say dinos, Democrats in name only, because that's what some demos are, actually.
Yeah.
They're not real Democrats, but we're actually progressive, so that's something altogether different. But make sure you don't slip and say that term, because that automatically makes the Republicans say, see, we're in their subconscious. We've already won.
I'm going to change it on my notes to say rhinoceroses, plural.
All right, darling.
Thank you, Donna.
I know it wasn't intentional.
No, I know.
One more thing before I hang up.
What's
One more thing. I wanted to congratulate you on the power of the way you ended your show yesterday. I was looking all over for that to play that for my little honey, and I couldn't find it. I said, "Oh no, I hope they didn't," because I couldn't find the replay of the show till I went to the website and I listened to it and I played it for him.
Okay.
So
well,
I just wanted to say it was powerful. It was so powerful. What you left us with, I was thinking about it until this morning.
Well, thank you, Donna. I'm
keep it up. Keep it up.
I promise you I will. Thank you for that support.
All right, Don. Talk to you later.
Have a great day. Bye-bye. Donna's keep correcting my language. And I hear, rhinoceroses. is who we are. With that big spear of a horn, we need to start using that and knocking some stuff down. All right, Henry, we're not going to do we're going to sit tight on the clips because I respectfully want to be able to kind of read through. I love Donna's question too, though. I mean, what she would ask Caroline Levitt. All right, guys, let's get through a few of these before we get to the top of the hour. Let's see what else folks are saying. It's an administration full of lies. Nancy says, I would ask Caroline Levitt, how can you blame universities for being anti-Semitic when you were holding funding for addressing DEI concerns? Damn. Nancy, woo. Or Nancy reared back in her chair and put that question together, you guys. Good on you, Nancy. That is a absolutely fantastic question. We need to catalog these. Henry, stay on me. Would you write a note for me to catalog these? These are darn good questions. Let's see. Good afternoon, Miss Levitt. Are you by any chance related to Baghdad Bomb? Whoa! Folks have memories here. This is coming from 630. Let's see. Todd says, obvious criminality happening. Trump has more crimes than most of the kidnapped detainees. Right on, Todd. Let's see, what else do we have? I would ask, can you name one of the... I'm sorry, guys. This is coming from Ray. I would ask, can you name one of these 100 countries wanting to make a deal, and are they in the room with us now? You guys are brilliant. See, I've said this before, and other folks have said, we in the progressive camp have some smart A people. Y'all just need to let that out. Okay, that's what I try to do here with our show, is let y'all let it out. Just let it out. These are great questions. Henry just, give me a reminder. I'm going to go back through and catalog these. These are great questions, guys. And I was thinking about this. It was like 2:00 in the morning. I was like, I want to ask this question because I got a clip sent to me of Caroline Levitt and the fact that she got busted on how she backtracked recently, and I was like, oh man, I've got to ask everybody that question, and it's great that it's coming from all over. But yeah, that's what when I talk about staying in the game, staying focused, being in the mix, and fighting. This is a way of fighting. I know we're not in that room, but this is a way for us to fight, guys, is to literally have, what questions would I be asking her? These are things that I believe, that get us out of our brain and acting on something. You've heard me say this before. If you can take action, you don't have a problem. And sometimes it's a challenge for all of us. I'll be the first, I'll step to the front of the line and say, I struggle with that too. Taking action on certain things. That being said, we push each other to take action. And thank you, Donna, for the compliment about what I said. I want the Republicans to know this is squarely in your laps. It's a platter full of garbage in your laps because of this deportation issue. Y'all sat at the DNC raising signs, mass deportation. How disgusting of you, and then to take your behinds to church on Sunday. We are Americans, and like Don Lathan said, our creed is about taking care of each other, and Republicans have dropped the ball. Y'all voted for this. You voted for this carnage that's coming from in our financial sectors right now. All the things that I read, 8 stories, every last one of them was about the carnage that's coming, that's here already. It's at our shores, it's in our door, in our front yards. Y'all voted for this. 78 million of you said, I want that versus that woman who can help us stay normal. Y'all voted for this. And as much as I can get after the people that didn't vote, still 78 million people who call themselves smart and with it and aware made a decision to vote for this carnage and this garbage of a president rather than voting for that dignified woman that would have led us in a different direction or at least kept us from running off the rails. There you go. So let's take a break, Henry. Number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we will be right back.
WCPT replay.
Do we have a helper with our governor, J.B. Pritzker? I'm so proud of him for getting up and saying something and for letting this administration know that, like, don't mess with Illinois.
Yeah.
He has been a huge ally to the LGBTQ community his entire life.
Yes.
Like his entire career. He married people in his backyard before it was legal.
Yeah, I remember when we had all three gubernatorial candidates on when he ran for the first time. Pritzker was the one I was least leaning towards until he came in the studio and told his story about as a child being taken to Castro Street by his mother to watch the Pride Parade. And I listened to him and I said, man, you come by it honestly. It is in your DNA. I became a huge fan that day we had him in, and I continue to be. I think we're really lucky.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
From office supplies to IT essentials, Amazon Business provides tools that help you save costs and make insight-based decisions. Learn how to bring your visions to life at AmazonBusiness.com.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. Senator Chris Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador to meet with the country's vice president. He's pushing to free Quilmar Abrego Garcia, who was mistakenly deported to a prison there by the Trump administration.
You would think that the U.S. courts have found that Mr. Abrego Garcia is part of MS-13, but in fact, they have not found that.
Van Hollen says the vice president told him El Salvador could not return Abrego Garcia to the U.S. The senator was not allowed to visit Abrego Garcia in prison. At an unrelated news conference Wednesday, Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked about the case.
President Bukele said he was not sending him back. That's the end of the story. If he wanted to send him back, we would give him a plane ride back. There was no situation ever where he was going to stay in this country. None.
In 2019, an immigration judge denied Abrego Garcia's asylum request but granted him protected status in the U.S., claiming his life was at risk if he returned to El Salvador. European shares opened lower on Thursday after a day of gains in Asia. The European Central Bank was expected to cut interest rates due to the potential impact of President Trump's trade policies. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni will meet with President Trump in the White House Thursday. She's the first European leader to meet face-to-face with the president after he announced and then paused his 20% tariffs on European exports. Japanese negotiators are also in Washington this week to discuss the president's tariffs. Japan still faces the 10% baseline tariff and a 25% tariff on cars, auto parts, steel, and aluminum exports to the U.S. Japan recorded a trade deficit for its March through April fiscal year, but reports a 63 million trade surplus with the United States. Meanwhile, China's President Xi Jinping is visiting Southeast Asian nations to promote his country as a more reliable trade partner. This is AP News. Puerto Rico is facing their second blackout in less than 4 months. Crews worked Thursday morning to restore power to the island. The outage began Wednesday past noon and left 1.4 million customers without electricity and over 300,000 without water. Officials expect 90% of customers will have power within 48 to 72 hours after the outage. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports the Vatican is opening the most solemn period of Holy Week without major input from a recovering Pope Francis.
Close to Easter, Pope Francis wanted to thank the staff for their services and the care received when he had life-threatening double pneumonia. Francis had a message for them. Thank you to all of you, he said. I pray for all of you. Please do the same for me. The pontiff has been recovering his voice, and during the meeting he did not wear nasal tubes to receive supplemental oxygen.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Caro. For today, we'll have partly to mostly cloudy skies with scattered showers and storms developing, high temperatures reaching up into the mid-60s. Then for tonight, a chance for showers and storms in the evening, a low of 56. For Friday, warming up to a high of 83 degrees, still can't rule out a slight chance for a shower or storm. For Saturday, chance for some early day showers, we're back in the mid-50s. And that's your latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 46.
Still struggling with gas, bloat, constipation, nausea, or diarrhea? Have you tried eliminating foods but felt no change? It's time to call the tummy whisperer, Renee Barish, at Digestive Health Solutions. Renee uses targeted testing to reveal exactly what's happening in your gut. Gut bacteria plays a key role in all your body functions, from cardiovascular regulation to brain function. When the gut is imbalanced, you may experience symptoms that extend beyond the gut, such as anxiety, skin issues, poor sleep, or increased risk for disease. Digestive Health Solution uses advanced testing to identify harmful microbes and evaluate the overall balance of the gut ecosystem. Get insights into your health, digestion, and how your microbiome affects all aspects of your body. Stop suffering. Call Renee now at 847-207-2034 or visit thetummywhisperer.com. That number is 847-207-2034. Let's get you feeling better. The Tummy Whisperer.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820 AM, where facts matter. Take it away, Richard.
Hey, progressives, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. I was saying to Henry, you guys lit it up and are still lighting it up when it comes to the questions that you would ask Caroline Leavitt if you were in the White House press room. So I'm going to keep reading them as best we can. I do want to answer a quick question. I was asked, would you please repeat the full rhinoceros and lion analogy? I didn't quite get it or understand. Okay, so what I was trying to say, and then we're going to get to our guest, Mike Holler. Lions have been labeled for years and whatever, the king of the jungle. And what I've always said and been more impressed with is rhinoceroses, not rhinos. Thank you, Donna. Is because I can't recall in any of the videos that I've watched in my lifetime where you see a lion attack a full-grown rhinoceros without some peril coming to that lion. Lions do great in attacking animals of their size or smaller on an individual basis, and they do well in attacking in packs. But something bigger, more ruthless, and a thicker skin, literally, they don't attack. And that's what I want us as progressive liberal Democrats to be more like. That rhinoceros that walks around the jungle with that big spear on the front that dares a bully to come after them. And candidly, lions are beautiful, but they're kind of bullies. They are. But I have not in my years seen a lion on its own run up on a rhinoceros and say, yo, dude, what's up? Without some peril. And the rhinoceroses are fast, they're agile, and they can defend themselves. And I want progressive liberal Democrats to be more like that. That's the analogy I've been making. I've been making that for years. So there you go. That's what I was trying to say. All right. Without a clean environment, though, none of us can survive. And every now and again, we have a person that is a leader in that space or someone that's leaning into that conversation when it comes to making sure that our environment is what we want it to be, which is better than it is right now. And with us this morning is one of the community organizers here in Chicago. Mike Holler is a volunteer community organizer and co-leader of the Citizens Climate Lobby Chicago. Mike, good morning and welcome to Choose Views on WCPT.
Good morning, Richard. I am very fortunate and grateful that you've decided to have me on the show, and I'm very motivated to talk about what we've got to talk about today.
That's my man. Well, listen, we're glad to have you with us. I'm always going to ask the question. I always ask this question first off when we have a guest on, and just to take a moment to tell us a little bit about you. I know by day you're a software engineer, but tell us a little bit about Mike, your volunteer work, so that our listeners have a little bit better connection to who you are and what you're working on.
So I am one of three other, so four total volunteer community leaders for the Chicago chapter of Citizens Climate, and that's something I've been doing for 3 going on 4 years at this point. After a little bit about me personally reaching a really low depressive spell about what's happening in our world and not feeling empowered to affect change. And so I felt the need to find an organization that was committed to that. And here I am.
Wow. Well, go ahead. So talk about the other part of your life. You're a community organizer, you're a volunteer, but you're a software engineer by day, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I went to school for software engineering over in North Central College in Naperville, and then came into the city to take some software jobs, and been doing that throughout all of this. But I have no formal training in climate originally, and it's been an exciting space to get into.
Well, I would gather that the engineering, the learning and the schooling that you have gone through gives you a certain perspective, or at least observation, to understand some of the science and the technologies that go into us being more forward thinking with improving our climate. Would that be a fair statement?
It's a great point, and yes, but also that comes at there's a way that engineering doesn't really cause us to get over the line, right? So the fact of it is we've had the solutions that we need to implement for climate for a while now. Wind and solar. Energy, other clean energy sources, and we're lacking the political will to implement it. So that was one of the things that I saw that actually caused me to get involved with Citizens Climate Lobby, is me looking at solutions and being involved in engineering, not in the climate space, but in the healthcare space is where my engineering is. And, growing up and thinking that engineering can solve a lot of these problems. And then, you face the real world and you can have all the solutions out there, but not the will to implement them. And so that was something that I really struggled with and struggled to see. And I think it's really important for us to engage both sides of the tools that we need. We need not just engineering, we need political will, and we can't have the political will to do something unless it's possible through the engineering. So we're all working together here.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping. Not hoping, but I wanted to hear your thoughts in that. So tell us about Citizens Climate Lobby, and what the organization's goals are, more maybe broadly, and then even specifically here in Illinois. Yeah,
sure. So Citizens Climate Lobby, we're a nonpartisan and nonprofit, volunteer-driven organization. We are across the country, and we bring the political will to climate solutions on the national level, which can be an uphill battle at times, but we've been doing this for many years now. Citizens Climate Lobby is, I think, over 15 years old at this point. We are focused nationally on a few different policy areas. We're focused on healthy forests, building electrification, clean energy permitting, and a carbon price. But what's really important is the grassroots organization that leads us to drive the political will to have these conversations to begin with, right? So it's not just about going out there and advocating for policy, but it's about building coalitions and building groups of involved people in our communities that then we can talk to and talk with and talk about when we're going and lobbying with our elected representatives. So the whole thing is really connected, which is why it's so important that our organization has so many chapters nationwide. We have, I think it's over 400 when I last looked, chapters nationwide, certainly more than the districts in Congress. So our hope is that we have a representative from CCL talking to each of them, which we do quite well at. We've never quite hit the full set, but I think the last time we lobbied, we hit over 400 members of Congress across the House and the Senate, and about half of them were Republican as well. So we're really serious about the nonpartisanship, but we also need the local base for us to build that, to get involved in local groups and community. We host a lot of local events that are not related to policy at all, just related to people getting their hands in the dirt and sharing with the community and helping make our world a better place locally too.
And I appreciate you for saying it that way, Mike. I oftentimes say on my show that we look to talk to people who have their sleeves rolled up and are elbows deep in solving problems, and you clearly are doing that, and the organization understands that. What's fascinating, and I didn't realize this, that you have so many chapters. I know that there are a ton here in Illinois, but my goodness, all over the country, you've got so many chapters, which has got to be inspiring for you as a volunteer to see that there are so many people that are truly concerned about the environment. And I know that's got to be a motivating force for you to know that there's folks in any part of the country that can get involved and be involved and then draw in more volunteers. Is that true?
Oh, that's so true. Yeah. This year will be my fourth year when we have the national organization that organizes a lobby day in D.C. It's at the end of July this year. And this will be my fourth year going. And the first year I went, I remember the experience there is everyone at Citizens Climate in any state, in any community, can come and lobby and also have the conference where we all learn and get to meet each other. And everyone I've met from CCL is some of the best people that I've met. There's so much understanding and so much listening that we do. The bipartisan focus, it causes that. So we get to learn from each other, which is really exciting. I've got to have conversations with a lot of left of center folks and a lot of right of center folks at our conferences where we get to come together and really see the work that we're all doing across the country. And we don't get to poke our head. I heard you use the metaphor earlier, poke our head above the sand, right? We don't get to do that. We're involved in our local community, and once a year we really get to meet people in person and interact on that level. And that is it's the fuel that drives me forward for the whole year. It's very exciting that we're all aligned nationally, and in a time where many of us aren't.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I've tried to focus on talking with folks who are like yourself, locally involved with a national organization or a national effort. I've used this phrase so many times, Mike, and it's kind of become my little phrase. If I'm walking down the street with you and two of your best friends and two of my best friends, no matter where we sit on a number of issues when it comes to the climate and the air that we breathe, in that moment, we're all breathing pretty much the same air. And we could be walking down Pennsylvania Avenue. We could be walking down Fifth Avenue. We could be walking down Rodeo Drive or Michigan Avenue. We're all breathing the same air and should have, and if the sun is out, we're all being hit by the same sun. So we should have a common feeling and belief about how we have to all work together to take care of this true thing that we all have in common. Is that a fair observation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And even across the political spectrum, I remember back when I was considering joining a climate organization, I felt a little bit hopeless about the progress that we were making. I don't feel that anymore, by the way. But I found this resource from Yale. It's called Yale Climate Opinion Maps, and they do a survey across the country where they go on the community on the county level and ask this suite of like 20 or so questions. And we're all concerned about climate. I pulled the numbers up for the most recent time yesterday, and West Virginia, for example, which is the least worried about climate nationally, 47% of its residents are still very concerned, still worried about climate change. And nationally, that number is 65%. And then, even further, we're also more aligned on solutions, too. There's actually more alignment on solutions in some cases than a belief or a worry that climate change is happening. So, and we can talk a little bit more about that as we get into our discussion. But you're right. We're all breathing the same air.
Yeah, I mean, I want to ask you that question, and this is why, from a timing standpoint, we have to make sure to have you back because it's an ongoing. This is not a one-time conversation that any of us can have. It's an ongoing conversation because we breathe and live and are active every single day. When you see those kinds of numbers with regard to where we are percentage-wise, and as a nation, and then on a state-by-state or region-by-region basis, do you have other data that supports or not supports, but illuminates why certain areas of the country, and this is not a partisan question, but why certain areas geographically may have lesser concern about the environment?
I mean, I think there's for one of the questions was about whether you've personally experienced the effects of climate change, and there's some areas of the country that are far more protected and insulated from it. We're actually in the Chicago and Illinois area fortunate to be sort of in that middle where we feel some of it, but maybe not as much as California with all the wildfires, for example. So you look at the map on some of these questions, and it becomes just geographically very clear when the red and orange, which is a higher percentage, it shows up on the places and communities that are feeling it most intensely right now. And I think that has a lot of what's to do with it. The data backs that up.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was the direction I was going. So you mentioned it here in Illinois, and this was one of the things that I had noted earlier. Our Cook County president, Tony Preckwinkle, our governor, those two people in particular, and even the mayor of the city of Chicago, have definitely leaned in, and particularly Ms. Preckwinkle have leaned in strongly when it comes to environmental hazards that are taking place in different neighborhoods or communities, not just here in Illinois, but throughout the country. And I know this has got to be a concern of yours, but we at least here in Illinois have some elected leaders that have made it clear that the environment's important to them. Our forest preserves leaders have been very, very clear on where they stand and why we've got to be more proactive in some of the things that we do. So that's got to be encouraging for you as a volunteer with an organization like this, that there are people that do have the political will to stand and say, we have to take care of our environment, and here's some of the things that we can do.
It is encouraging, and the only part where it causes me some concern is we're making so much progress on a state level for a lot of environmental concerns, but I don't want that to have us lose our focus from what happens nationally. And it can be easier to feel that the state wins are easier to make, and easy wins feel better, right? You don't feel like you're pushing against a wall with a lot of inertia. In this current political environment in our state, it's a lot easier to pass environment policies nationally, but we need them nationally. But we need that national support and defense, and there are people willing to hear it, even in this Congress, which I think can surprise a lot of people. So that's what I mentioned earlier about connecting local action to national action. We're not so much involved in the state level and citizens climate, but the local level and local level politics, we try to get people involved on that front, and then so you can feel those easy wins and the direct effect that you have on the community, and then you can also use that to drive forward your interest in volunteering to talk to the national level and invest. It's more of an investment, right? Because it takes time. Invest your time in advocating for these solutions, which when they happen, you don't always see an immediate and clear effect, right? We had the Inflation Reduction Act passed a few years ago at this point, and that was something that we were heavily involved in at Citizens Climate. It involved a bunch of clean energy tax credits, et cetera. And, you don't look out the window and immediately see a change in the world that you're living in from something like that, right? It's slow and gradual and over time. So it's really about diversifying where you're investing your time so that you can get the smaller but easier wins, and then also the harder but larger wins too.
Sometimes you get the baseball analogy is important in terms of progress, and that is, singles count just as much as others do, but sometimes singles take more time before you get that to hit that grand slam. So the singles matter and the small wins matter. And I talk about this in terms of folks being active and being involved in politics or just in social change. It's the incremental stuff that we sometimes lose sight of because it's not as grandiose or as exciting or as sexy, but it still matters. And that's what I'm hearing you say. Let me ask you this last question as we wrap up, and look forward to having you back. What are some daily things? If you were to say, Richard, here are 3 things that I've learned as a volunteer that individuals can do as part of climate effect and or change that they can do on a daily or a weekly basis, what would those 3 things be?
The first thing I would say is, and I've heard you mention this on the show before, is contact your members of Congress and elected representatives, right? Include a story about why you want this thing to happen and what you want to happen, and be specific. So one of the reasons why we're able to get meetings with all of these members of Congress is because people do that, and people rise this up as a concern that they want to talk about. We have a tool on our national site that'll direct you to your members of Congress at cclusa.org/action, where you can support some of our policies that we're interested in, but just as well, if you see something in the news, a policy you're interested in, mention that you want them to vote for that in particular. It always helps to be more specific. So that's one thing. Another thing is getting in contact and being involved in a local community in some way, shape, or form. We had a movie day at Davis Theater in north side of Chicago, and we just talked about getting involved in general, right? So it can feel, when you write to a member of Congress and you get that template email back most of the time, it can feel like you're just talking into the void. You really want that feedback to help drive forward and give meaning to the writing that you're doing. So if you have the time, being able to reach out to an organization like ours and get involved, and you could do that for our organization at cclusa.org/join. That'll direct you to whichever chapter in your local area is involved. So it won't direct you necessarily to us, but it'll direct you to, if you live in Naperville, the greater Naperville chapter, for example. And the other thing would be talking about it with other people. One of the most concerning statistics for me on that Yale Climate Opinion Survey, Matt, is the number of people that actually talk about climate change with their family and friends. That was one of the questions. And it's lower than almost every one of the other questions in terms of a percentage, right? We aren't talking about this enough, right? Especially in this sort of flood the zone, as you hear, style administration. There's so many different things we're talking about. One of the most radical efforts that you can be involved in is focus. And focusing on what is important to you. And if you are continually distracted by all of the signal noise, some of it's so very important, don't get me wrong. But if you're able to stay on a point of view and be consistent for it, you can make change over time. And that's what we've shown here at CCL with all of the legislative wins we've had over the last roughly 15 years that the organization has been doing this, and the last 4 years that I've gotten to see personally.
Mike, this is I'm taking notes, man, and I really I love what you said about being specific, tell a story, and stay focused. And that's one of the things that it is hard to do or challenging to do when you've got so much being thrown at you, frankly, from a national political level. But,
and if I may interject briefly too, I missed a really important point for us, and that's be kind. I know it can be hard to do and feel when you feel things are maybe crumbling around you. But the members of Congress that we talk to, and one of the things that I learned when I first got involved in a lobby meeting is we talk to staff a lot of time in our lobby meetings because they're more educated on the specific subject matter that we're talking about than the member is himself, and they'll get that information distilled and delivered to them. But the staff is very knowledgeable and ready and interested in doing things and helping. Oftentimes they went to school for this sort of thing in the particular specific area that you're talking about. So they're very invested, and just having that conversation is the most valuable thing, and seeing it in person that people do care in the background. When the signals are only coming one direction and you don't hear them listening to you, you can feel they don't care.
Yeah.
But when you're in the room with them, it's a lot harder to ignore that. And so having some empathy with your messaging to Congress does go a long way too. Yeah, no, it's the more bees with honey than with vinegar theory. Mike, we'll wrap up here, and we will have you back because this is, as I said, an ongoing big concern for all of us that we share. How can folks find you? And you talked about volunteering. Lay it out real quickly. What are the websites? What are the ways that folks can find you? Yeah, so I called it out a little earlier. We've got at cclusa.org, you have a /join and a /action, depending on what you're more interested in doing, and that's at the national level, so anyone interested listening to this out of state can do it as well. And then for our chapter in Chicago, we have a page on meetup.com for any of our events that are very welcoming for beginners to get involved with that don't require a lot of setup or background. So you can find Citizens Climate Lobby Chicago on meetup.com and all of our events there. In particular, I want to highlight two events that we have coming up. On May 31st in Bridgeport, we have we're going to be involved with a volunteer fair organized by the trash people in Chicago. They pick up trash. I love the name. At the Ramova Theater down there. Yep. And there's a bunch of different organizations, not just climate organizations, that you can talk with, and very, very empowering environment to be in and to talk to people about. And then for us, on May 10th, we're going to be involved with the Chicago Parks District on River Day in Indian Ridge Marsh on the south side of Chicago, and pulling up a bunch of invasive species, getting our hands in the dirt, and seeing those easy wins happening right in front of us with every clip of the pruners.
Absolutely. Mike, thanks for being with us, man. We got to hit a quick break, but we'll have you back in the near future, maybe after your couple of events. But stay safe, as I say to everyone, and we appreciate all your hard work, and thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much, Richard, and we would love to be back. Just reach out. Absolutely, we will. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. That's Mike Holler, community organizer and co-leader of the Citizens Climate Lobby here in Chicago. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we might be talking with one of those Congress folks, none other than Congresswoman Robin Kelly. We'll be right back.
Hey, honey, what are you doing?
Studying for a math test.
You want some acupuncture?
Acupuncture can help with tests?
Yeah, that was the subject of my published doctoral work. My research showed that one acupuncture treatment before a test improves memory by 9.5%.
That's almost a whole letter grade higher.
And it reduced procedural errors by 36%. That's all from one treatment. Additional treatments help more.
Wow, I want some of that.
I have patients who will come in before final exams, SATs, MCATs, and other tests. And we've seen this technique help older folks with things like dementia and Alzheimer's.
Can I get acupuncture too? I have a vocabulary test coming up.
Acupuncture can help remedy problems, but it can also help a healthy person perform even better. Come see us at Chicago Community Acupuncture at Milwaukee, Devon, and Nagel. Call us at 773-853-0920, 773-853-0920, or what's the website, girls?
Chicamacu.com.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. That's 800-708-3091.
When it comes to banking, you need a bank you can trust. A bank with a rock-solid reputation and the highest integrity. A bank that gives you the attention and respect you deserve.
ABOC first opened its doors in downtown Chicago in 1922, and we've made our name on deep expertise, best-in-class service, and a strong commitment to our customers. We know the Chicago business market inside and out and can help you craft the perfect banking solution, no matter what type of business you're in.
And if you're looking for a banking partner for your labor union, we can bring the type of expertise that only comes from a bank that was founded by labor unions and still has union employees and shareholders to this day.
Whether you need a deposit account, loan, trust services, or investment management, ABOC has you covered. Let's work together to manage your finances today while planning for a better tomorrow. ABOC, a bank built on a strong foundation.
Visit aboc.com to learn more. Member FDIC.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Caro. For today, we'll have partly to mostly cloudy skies with scattered showers and storms developing, high temperatures reaching up into the mid-60s. Then for tonight, a chance for showers and storms in the evening, a low of 56. For Friday, warming up to a high of 83 degrees, still can't rule out a slight chance for a shower or storm. For Saturday, chance for some early day showers, we're back in the mid-50s. And that's your latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 48.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back. Progressives to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Great to have Mike Holler on with us, talking about the importance of the environment and getting involved. And once again, taking an issue that may be a local individual, but is part of the national conversation. And as he said, the connectivity that they get through the other chapters is really important. So it's great to have him with us. Man, it's been a while since we've had a chance to talk with one of our leaders in Congress, right from the good old state of Illinois, from the Illinois second congressional district, and that would be none other than Congresswoman Robin Kelly. Good morning, Miss Kelly, and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on.
Good to hear your voice again. I want to ask that general, broad question about how you're doing right now.
I am hanging in there. I'm not going to let, I love my job. I'm not going to let any, I don't want to say a bad word, anybody steal my joy. I'll put it like that.
Wait a minute. My sister said to me once, she said, yeah, you want to say that bad word. You just choose to not say that bad word.
Right.
But it is an honor to have you with us again. I know the last time we had a chance to chat, it was before the election, and things didn't turn out the way that we wanted them to. No. And we know that that's our reality now. And kudos to you and the other members of Congress, Democratic members of Congress, who are in that fight. And like I say often, sleeves rolled up and elbows deep every day to bring us every day to bring us the best that you have. So it's great to have you on the show again. And I know we promised to have you back, and we just all got busy after November 5th trying to keep the pieces of the puzzle together, and you're an integral part of that. You've got some new legislation that I know you want to talk about, along with your Illinois colleague, Senator Dick Durbin. Talk to us a little bit about this new introduction of the Federal Firearm Licensing Act.
Sure. Well, gun violence prevention has always been one of my priorities, something I ran on 12 years ago now. But this is to keep bad actors like rogue dealers, gun traffickers, and store purchasers from exploiting the weakness in our federal laws. And these laws haven't been updated in like 30 years. And that's how guns end up in the hands of people who aren't allowed to have them because of this exploitation. So, we want to modernize the Federal Firearms Act by requiring physical security measures to prevent firearm theft, from stores and other places. It clarifies some of the standards, and it also repeals some long-standing appropriations riders that have really stopped enforcement of existing laws by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Really, their hands have been tied, in so many ways, and they, even from their mouth, haven't gotten the resources that they've needed to, check out gun stores and other places. And it does more in increasing record retention and electronic data management for sharing background checks, which is very important.
So what does it help us understand when you said earlier the enforcement riders and how this is preventing them from doing their jobs or having their hands tied to not do their jobs? Help us understand that a little bit better.
From my understanding I'm on the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force, and we've had people from ATF or ex-ATF folks tell us that really their hands have been tied because they haven't had the resources or the money to be able to check, like, gun stores or gun owners that are selling guns. When they told me, I think, like one gun shop that I had in my area, that finally closed, shockingly. I don't even think they were checked out once a year to make sure they were doing what they were supposed to be doing.
Is it expensive in this space to have these checks in place?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you need the people power to do it. You need the people to be able to go into the store, the employees of ATF to be able to go into the stores. You need updated data management systems, and it just seems like that, this is even before my time, that their hands have been really tied and they haven't been given the resources to do their jobs. So, like, when there's appropriations, put together each Congress, from what I was told, they were losing appropriations, so they couldn't do what they needed to do.
Interestingly enough, I mean, this is an area, and maybe this is a second tied to the vaunted Second Amendment conversation around, a right to bear arms. Not in a responsible society, it would seem as though we would have allowed ourselves to say, let's make the adjustments to make this better. And that seems to be sort of the big bad bear in the room that doesn't allow for the appropriations to be directed where they need for gun safety for all across the country. I mean, am I crazy?
I think that the Second Amendment, I get it, but I think also it's been used as an excuse not to do things. Oh, the Second Amendment, can we have cannons in our backyard? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's been used as the easy go-to excuse. But, like, from 2018 to 2022, more than 1.5 million guns were recovered at crime scenes across the United States and traced to a purchaser. And the thing is, a lot of those, like Chuck's Gun Shop, which closed in my district finally, was the source of nearly 1,000 guns recovered at crime scenes. So it makes you wonder, were guns stolen? Were background checks not properly done? Like, how does this happen? So, that these laws are to strengthen us so that these things cannot happen. Of the guns, the 1.5 million guns that were recovered, nearly half were used in crimes within 3 years of the initial sale.
Half of the ones that were recovered were have been used in crimes?
Used in crimes from 2018 to 2022. Yeah, 1.5 million guns were recovered at crime scenes across the U.S. and traced to a purchaser. And of those guns, nearly half were used in a crime within 3 years of their initial sale. So a strong number of guns that have been trafficked.
So I had on the show earlier this week Dr. Shay O'Mara, who is a trauma surgeon, and he spoke to and from the Ad Council, Mary Zoss talked about gun violence and the impact on our children, our youth under the age of 17, and even he leaned into the conversation around young adults who are over the age of 18. And, you know this because of the committees that you serve on, but the gun violence has not gone down. But what was unique about what he said is so much of the gun violence that we have seen and that he's seen in this as a trauma surgeon is from accidental discharges. What's been your observation in that space, and what are you seeing as a congressional leader in that space?
Interestingly enough, I was on a panel with docs from Johns Hopkins, and what we talked about was safe storage also, that if we just had safe storage laws, 8 kids a day die because they get a hold of guns, and then, with suicide attempts. But that could come from, you're saying accidental discharge? Mm-hmm. What were you saying?
Yes.
But is that, I don't know, is that, I'm not sure if they mean because how the guns were put together, like in ghost guns, or
no,
do
he was talking about it from a safe storage standpoint and how children get access to, they're not stored properly or they're not stored in a safe way. What was your conversations about with regard to the folks at Johns Hopkins in that area?
No, that's one of the things we talked about, and I don't know. It was Brady that was with us also, that 8 kids a day lose their lives because we haven't stored guns safely, and that the amount of gun deaths, including, accidents and suicides, would be cut in half if we had safe storage. Because if you want to kill yourself and you have to go through some time to get your gun or unlock your gun, they feel that research has shown that a lot of those people would not wind up killing themselves because they would have, time to think about it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Dr. O'Mara was saying as well. Mm-hmm. It's a form of prevention, it's a form of safety,
right? And
it's common. It goes back to what you've said for such a long time as a staunch supporter of common sense gun reform and responsible policy making in that space. You've been a champion there.
Yeah, I ran on it. My 12th anniversary was last Friday, and that's what I ran on, and it was right around the time Newtown happened and Hydea Pendleton happened, and it just kept happening in 2013, and unfortunately, it keeps happening. And a lot of responsible gun owners want to see this too. But it's just very difficult. We need 218 votes in the House and 60 votes in the Senate and a willing president to sign the legislation. But it is not easy to get things passed. And I've been in Congress 12 years, and I've only been in the majority 4 of those years.
Wow.
And of the 4 years the House has been in the majority, the Senate wasn't necessarily in the majority or had 60 members to vote for this.
Yeah, and I want people to understand how Congresswoman Robin Kelly just broke down the numbers. When you don't have the numbers, you guys are still fighting, but it's hard as heck to get things across the finish line without the numbers. And I always say to my listeners all over the country, Congresswoman, we have to stay engaged. We have to stay fighting. We can't bury our heads in the sand. We need to sometimes take a break and get recharged. But if we believe in the country and if we want to preserve and save our country and have it move forward, we can't completely disengage. We have to stay in the mix. And I appreciate your hard work there. I want to pivot a little bit, not radically, just a tiny amount. And that is, you're also a strong advocate of the improvements that need to be had when it comes to our SNAP program, and that how important it is that we lean in as a society to make sure that our children are fed. And you've been a staunch advocate in passing legislation to make sure that we keep that program stout and strong. And talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it comes through the Farm Bill where the farmers and what they need and SNAP have been put together. They need each other. And right now, Republicans are talking about slashing food assistance by $230 billion. That would affect, in my district, almost 190,000 people. But what people don't realize that if we do that, that not only affects people that are hungry, it affects the farmers, it affects the grocery stores or supermarkets. It's all tied together. It'll hurt the hungry folks, it'll hurt the farmers, and it will hurt the supermarket. And if the supermarket or grocery store doesn't have people shopping, people will lose their jobs. It's all connected together, and it's cruel, what people want to do. Yesterday, I toured a place called Free Indeed. It's a food pantry in Dalton, and listening to how cutting SNAP would hurt them, because different food entities get, some money from the program, and they're feeding people in the South suburban area that would lose that ability for fresh fruits and healthy foods, which that's another whole story, how, some neighborhoods it's easier to get McDonald's than it is to get, vegetables and fruit, which we all need to be eating more of. So it will hurt a lot of people. Just in my district alone, 190,000 people.
190,000 people. So when we lay that, if we did a heat map throughout the country, and that there's help me out. There's 435 congressional districts. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
And we have approximately, most of us have 750,000 people. Not everybody, but most.
So 20% roughly of your district would be impacted by that. So we could then say, we could do the math on that throughout the country, and it's millions of people. I can't do the math fast enough in my head, and I don't want to pull out a calculator, but it's millions of people that are impacted by this as both consumers and small businesses that provide the services to the consumers that would then turn around and be able to spend money in their respective stores. And so that cycle, that there's that vicious cycle that we always talk about.
And I want to be very clear that it's urban, suburban, and rural. People like to put one broad brush on who receives, SNAP or Medicaid and all of that, but it affects urban, suburban, and rural, and all kind of people.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. I've been talking about that for weeks now since the election, that this has impacted these cuts, this reckless wrecking ball chaos coming from the administration is detrimental to, there's no question around it. And I ask this question often. I want to just put this out to you as a person that's in the cauldron. There seems to be no, not end, but a plan that says, here's our destination. You, me, and 10 other people get on a plane or a train and take a ride somewhere. There's a destination that we're looking forward to getting to. I don't see, and I think millions of Americans don't see, and maybe you can illuminate this, the destination of these tariffs, the destination of these cuts. There's nothing that's showing that we can go, that's where we're headed.
No, we're headed to someone that wants to be a king and wants people begging him and those kind of things. No, tariffs are taxes on American people. Everything's going to go up, even though that was his big thing running. Oh, I'm going to bring the economy down. The cost of living is going to go down. He's doing nothing to help that. And when you think about the thousands of people that have been laid off, let's not forget, okay, they're laid off or fired, they also won't have health care anymore because health care came through their jobs. So, and then he wants to cut, Medicaid, and he hasn't gotten to Medicare yet, but we're even looking at Social Security. So he's doing nothing that he said he would do. People are scared to look at their 401ks because of what he's doing, the ups and downs.
Yeah.
No, he's doing a lot of damage.
How are you holding up? I mean, when I say that, I don't mean how, but what I mean. Yeah. I mean, what are the things that you're doing and the things that you're saying to your constituents in your district that are helping in going through this?
Well, I think I've had 3 tele-town hall meetings. I think one was December, stuff like that, 11,000 people. Then I had one about 6 weeks ago, 11,000. I had one Tuesday, 13,000 people. So I'm listening to their concerns, and I have usually someone on with me, like the other night we did it on Social Security. So I have one of my colleagues that's on the Social Security subcommittee that can answer questions and really be very thorough. But then we're also reassuring people. But the biggest thing is we're telling people, don't stay on the sidelines. You have a voice. You are listened to. But if we stay on the sidelines and not use our voices, whether you're a teacher worried about the Department of Education, a parent, or you work for the post office, there's post offices all over the United States. Don't only call the Democrats, call the Republicans too. Keep them accountable. We only need 3 or 4 of their votes most of the time to stop what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing. So there is people power, and people need to use it. But, I met with my superintendents and higher ed people on Monday. I went down to more of the rural part of my district and had a town hall meeting last night. And I'm not the only one. We're all over the place trying to inform people. We're litigating, legislating, and communicating, frankly, and asking people to please be advocates and be agitators, too. We're not supposed to say that, but do that.
Come on now, Congresswoman. Listen, I'm gonna put this out here right now. We have to have you back, and I'm gonna make a commitment, but I don't want to commit you. I'd love to have you back on a monthly basis. You've got too much to say. You're leaning in too much on serious issues. So we'll figure out behind the scenes how to have you back monthly, because people need to hear what you just said. And as we let you go, I'm going to do one quick thing, because you have a birthday coming up in the next week or so. So I got to say happy birthday to you in advance.
Thank you.
And I'm an April baby birth person as well. So
all right.
That's right. Happy birthday to Congresswoman Robin Kelly. And y'all,
back at you.
Thank you. And y'all need to get behind the Congresswoman, because she's doing the work. She's out there fighting for us, not just here in Illinois, but throughout the country with the committees and the work that she's doing. And we appreciate you being with us this morning.
Thank you so much, and have a great day.
You too. We'll talk soon. Bye now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, y'all. Get the clip from this section, from this part of the show, and play that over and over again, because she's doing the work, and she gave us a little bit of a recipe of what we can be doing. And the number one thing that she said, Henry, was what? Stay active. It's hard, but we stay active, and we keep. My dad used to say, if you drip water on something long enough, it will dissolve away. And that's what we have to do with this rock that we're dealing with right now. Kudos to Congresswoman Robin Kelly for her leadership, for her involvement, for her commitment. And as she said right out of the gate, I still love my job, and I'm still fighting forward. So, this is what we do, guys. This is where we have to be. And I'm trying to do my best job, do my best to bring you the best that we can in this fight. And I'm so proud to have had, Mike Holler on with us this morning. He really brought a message, too, about staying involved and being focused and being specific. And when you call, tell a story. And I think that's just phenomenal for that to be the message from a volunteer of a community organizing group. And at the same time, because Mike doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to. He can just be a software engineer and go do his thing. But he's chosen to be a part of the process and part of the solution. And Congresswoman Kelly, in the same vein, she's chosen to, in the midst of this craziness, still like her job, still love her job, and still work hard to make sure that she's doing the best she can. I say this all the time, guys. We know that our leaders are not perfect in what they do and what they get done. But the difference, the significant difference, is that they are committed to doing the best that they can to make sure that the spaces that we live in and occupy together, like Mike said, and like I said about just the air and the air quality in our environment, are better. So when you have a congressperson that's doing that kind of work and leaning in like that, you have to get behind them. You've got to find a way to support them and find out what they, she talked about 13,000 or 11,000, 13,000, something like that. More than 10,000 folks participating in these town halls. That tells you something. It tells us that we got something to say. It also says that a congresswoman like Robin Kelly is listening. So get behind them and let them know that she said, but call some Republicans too. Guys, as always, it's a pleasure and an honor to be with you. I am so thankful to be here every day. And like I say every day, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.
advertisement sponsored by Allied Injury Group, not available in all states. This important message from Allied Injury Group reminds you that if you or someone you love was injured in an accident that wasn't your fault, you deserve financial compensation for your medical expenses, lost wages, pain, and suffering. Don't rely on insurance companies to look out for you. If you haven't spoken to an attorney, call our legal experts now. Work accident, truck accident, collision with an uninsured driver, or a slip and fall. Allied Injury Group has helped clients win hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. They're available 24/7 to take your call and fight for you. Remember, if you or someone you love suffered injuries in an accident that wasn't your fault, like being struck by a drunk driver, a collision with an 18-wheeler, were a victim of workplace negligence or more, get the financial compensation